Okay. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. We're just giving a minute for all our audience to join in. So we'll start in about a minute. Okay, it's 2 minutes after, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Prachi Bivalkar. I am the co-director of programming at BPMA, Boston Product Management Association. Welcome to the August monthly event. For those of you who are new to BPMA, we have events like these every month. Today's event is focused on the product marketing, which is an exciting topic for all product managers because we come across this topic pretty much on a weekly or a monthly basis on what does product manager do, what does the product marketing do. So we have all the questions to be answered here today in today's event. Before we begin, a quick introduction for those of you who are joining us for the first time. Boston Product Management Association is a leading professional association in the greater Boston region. We are dedicated to the career development of product management and product marketing professionals. What we do is we plan events like these. We also have mentorship programs. We have content on our website. To learn more about all the offerings BPMA offers, please visit our website, bostonproducts.com. We like to thank our sponsors, because of which we are able to bring events like these to you. Before we begin, there are a few guiding principles. We encourage cameras to be on so we can have that virtual networking. We also welcome networking in the Zoom chat, so feel free to use the Zoom chat to introduce yourself, your name, your title, your organization, and your location. And feel free to use the Zoom chat to ask any questions as we go. You can also use the hand raise feature on the Zoom chat to ask any questions. But we really encourage all the networking and all the engagement that we can get in today's session. With that, I would like to welcome our two speakers, Neil and Mark. Welcome to BPMA, and thank you so much for taking your time to present these slides to us. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Neil and Mark to go ahead with the introduction and the slides. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a second to get set up here and share my screen, which will take a second here. Can people see my, let me share my screen here. Can people see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. All right, delighted to be here. We're here to, first of all, I realize this is lunchtime. I want to share with you a little secret that I've actually been on camera and I've eaten my lunch while I'm on camera, and nobody has ostracized me. So research has shown again and again that people who are on camera get a lot more out of these sessions than those who are off camera. So I want to first thank Prachi for serving as our technical producer for today's event. But also you say, look, if you can be on camera, that's great. If you have for technical reasons, if you're driving for some reason, please don't be on camera. But if you are sitting at your desk, I can't think of too many reasons why you wouldn't be on camera. So with that said, let's get going here. And product marketing is one of the most misunderstood functions in the entire company. It is also, as a result, one of the most unappreciated functions in the entire company. However, it doesn't always have to be that way. And so the question that we're posing at the very beginning in the title is product marketing useless? The answer is heck no, especially if it is a high impact product marketing function, which we're going to get into during today's session. And one thing that I want to point out is that between Mark Kalin, Mark, if you just want to wave, our co-presenter, we have close to 4 decades of product marketing leadership experience. We've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're happy to share our insights with you. So you're in the right place if these are your frustrations. You have a sense within your company that nobody really knows what product marketing should do. You also feel plagued because you don't have a bandwidth to get everything you're supposed to get done. You're overwhelmed with tactical stuff, as we'll get into in a second. You don't have enough influence in the company as a result. And there's a general sense that you may be doing okay, but there's a frustration that you feel you could be doing even better. And product marketing is a hugely broad topic. We could turn this easily into a 2 or 3 day conference on product marketing. But to help us deliver as much value as we can to you, we'd like to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could put in the chat what your role is within your company, if you're a general manager, if you're product marketing, if you're product management, if you're in marketing, sales, if you could just pop in the chat your function, that would be great.
We got one says product marketing. We got a couple product marketing, 3 product marketing out of 3. So 100% product marketers so far. 4 or 5. Oh, product management, GM. Okay. That's a good mix.
Yeah. Okay. And so if you could then put your level, are you an individual contributor? Are you a manager, director, VP? That would be also quite helpful as well.
Okay, we've got a couple other VP and a director level. We've got IC customer success manager on the line, senior PMM director level, VP, PMM VP, VP. So a good level of fairly senior people on the call from a diverse background. Great,
Mark, thanks. So the final thing is here, we're going to spend an hour together. What do you want? What is one thing that you would like to get out of this session that you'd like to see us cover? By the way, this is not a guarantee, but we'd like to hear from you. Why are you here? What would you like to get out of this?
And I love that question because we'll be able to answer it from a real world perspective from those 40 years that Neil was talking about. So if you have any pressing problems, real world issues that you're struggling with today, they might come to you later in the discussion. Just feel free to plug them in there.
Okay, so I see what product marketing can do, how product management collaborate with product marketing. We'll touch on that. Good to see you again, Jillian. So, all right, thank you for putting that in there. That's great. That's very helpful. So this is how many companies, I would say most companies think about product marketing. It's the collateral department. We need a brochure created about a product, and okay, we'll go to product marketing and really understand what that is. Hey, we're going to an event, or there's a salesperson going to an event. Oh, I need a sign. Well, about a product, I'll call product marketing. I love this one, when sales or even marketing can't find a case study about a product, or gee, that brochure that was created, where is that again in our archives? I just can't seem to find that. And sure enough, product marketing is great to be the lost and found. It can be the help desk. We're working on an emergency proposal, an RFP response. Now we need some verbiage about a product to throw it in there. Let's go to product marketing and they'll help us. Or in general, it's the primary interface with Marcom. And whenever we need, when we're too busy or we can't reach the marketing folks on the marketing department or the agency, we'll just call product marketing and they'll act as a buffer for us. Does this sound like what you have experienced with product marketing? You can just put a thumbs up, or you can just put a yes in the chat, or even for those of you who are gracious enough to be on camera, you can just do a thumbs up if you're seeing this description of product marketing. Because I know Mark and I have seen this many, many, many times. And so it doesn't have to be that way. There's some, or actually a few organizations that think about product marketing more strategically. They're seen now as an equal business partner. Product marketing has a seat at the proverbial executive table. They're a valued contributor to the success of the business. They own the market intelligence. They are the group and the people who the company goes to learn what's going on in the marketplace. What are our customers on a broad level really thinking? If you're looking at ownership of a document or a deliverable, it's the market requirements talk, MRD. They own the go-to-market strategy for a product. It's not just being a water boy or a water girl waiting to be told what to do. You own the value proposition. You are looking at segmentation. You own the personas. You understand how customers buy, the buyer's journey, and you can relate that and tie that into sales enablement. People look to you for the types of sales training that should be done, the types of sales tools that could be created. You're really seen as a leader within the organization. You may get involved in the implementation, but you're overseeing it. You're not doing the brochures. You're working with others to get the brochures done. And you will, and here's a shout out to one of our sponsors, Pragmatic Institute. If you're familiar with the Pragmatic Institute's framework, you look in the upper left. You start off with market problems, and you own the upper left of the pragmatic framework. My firm likes to take and use simple analogies to describe complex concepts like product management and product marketing interface. And I saw in the chat there are a few things in terms of how does product management and how does product marketing interact? Well, we like to talk about a grocery store analogy. So you can think about product management in that grocery store, deciding what do we put on the shelves? Or in other words, what should we build and why? And you're very much focused on development. And if you own a document, it's the product requirements doc, the PRD. What kind of features should we be developing? What does the roadmap look like? How do we set priorities with the development organization? If we're doing competitive intelligence, it's focused at the feature level. How do our features compare to our competitors' features? And when you go out there and you are talking to the marketplace, it's how do you work? You work with a functional buyer, you work with a technical audience, you work with the users to really understand what their needs are. Make sense? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And on the other hand, the folks in product marketing, once again, we're talking about elevating this role and making it more strategic. It's all about getting products moved off the shelf. It's about why do people buy? Who should buy? for example. So it's looking at market segmentation. It's looking at customer selection. You may hear ICP or ideal customer profile. They own that. Specifically, as we talked about a little bit before, they own the MRD, market requirement stock. They understand and they articulate and they prioritize what market problems should be solved. If you want to think about whereas product management may look at development or engineering acceleration, product marketing looks at revenue acceleration here. And once again, when you're out there doing research and talking to customers, product marketing plays the role in understanding the needs of the senior people, the economic buyers, the people who write the checks. And once again, this is an ideal. This is what we're trying to get to. Mark will be sharing his experiences in a few minutes for how do you get there and some do's and don'ts along the path. And we'll also talk about the impact of being a high impact product marketing team. Once again, this is aspirational for most firms, but it surely is a lot more rewarding to be in product marketing if you're focused on this, as opposed to being the lost and found department. And so one of the key principles we want people to get is that this is a strategic role. This is being a quarterback within the organization. However, if this role is not being played, usually it's other groups must fill the gap. And for those of you in product management, what often happens is if product marketing is the lost and found department, the emergency collateral department, the signage department, the gopher department, if you will, then product management is often the function that has to step up and do this. And I talk with dozens and dozens of product management leaders, VPs, directors, and often we find is that we're burnt out. My people are quitting because they're overworked. Or, gee, there's a lot of frustration here. There's way, way, way too much to do in too little time. We're trying to put 10 pounds worth of work into a 3-pound bag, and it's just not working for us. Often the symptom isn't anything to do with product management. It often has a lot to do that product marketing, once again, is the lost and found department. Or it just doesn't get done, and you have everybody running around doing what they want. So we'd like to get a sense, and you can put it in the chat. We talked about what tactical product marketing looks like. We've introduced the concept of what strategic marketing looks like. So where does your product marketing team fall on the tactical to strategic continuum? Please put in the chat whether you're a 1 to 10 scale. 5 is kind of in the middle.
Okay, Carol is a 6. Anyone else?
Anybody else?
Another 6.
Okay.
An 8.
8, Peter, you're at 8. So you're really
kicking,
you're kicking butt there, Peter. Anybody else want to weigh in here? So nobody else has opinion about where we are on the tactical strategic. We do it all. Okay, so you do it all. So I think you're closer. Elena, you're a 10. 9 maybe. So that's great. So maybe we should give the mic to you, Elena. You can tell us how you do it. My guess is that the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s are the rest of you, and you don't want to admit it. Maybe if we did this as an anonymous survey, we would have different results, but I think it's only the 6 and aboves. So it looks like 90% of you are less than 5s, which is pretty typical to what we're seeing here. We can talk about the implications. Okay, so like to move forward and introduce my colleague, Mark. I've had the pleasure to work alongside Mark as he's had a number of different opportunities and a number of different leadership roles. And he is clearly a thought leader in the idea of creating high impact product marketing teams and organizations. So Mark, why don't you just introduce yourself quickly and share with you some of the insights.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here because I know what product marketing can do and what a great impact it can have on an organization. The thing is, it took me a long time to figure it out. You know, that was the challenging part. You know, this story goes back probably 7-8 years ago. I had taken a new role as a VP of product marketing, and I walked into the organization, and it was unbelievably tactical, the types of things that we were doing. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But, you know, at that point, I kind of reached out to Neil and I said, Neil, look, these guys are doing it, living in the Stone Ages over here. Let's start talking about our vision, or what would a vision of product marketing look like? So this deck and these discussions have been going on for a number of years. And with my background, so what I eventually ended up doing was being able to assess kind of what a current state situation is and how do you progress that to a high impact organization, high impact product marketing team. And you can see some of the organizations I've worked at where it proves it out. But this is the money slide. Well, this is the money slide. So just to get into the presentation, if you think about when you're working with your executive leadership team, you need to be able to be persuasive, and you need to be able to put together a business case to get the things that you're looking for, whether that's funding, whether that's resources, whether it's whatever it is you're looking for. And this is one of the ways I help build my case with my executive leaders about why they should continue to invest in product marketing. You know, these are real world examples. And I looked at 3 sort of areas where I've seen significant impact. You know, first and foremost, growth. So, you know, working in an organization where through organic growth, we grew the revenue 189% in a single year. Or how about growing revenue again in the second year by another 80 million, right? Now, there are things we did to do this. For example, one of the things I'll talk about when we get into this is a 3-year P&L for your product, so you can kind of understand where you're going to need to invest and where you might want to lower your investments. The second thing I like to talk about, and this is really big, I've spent a lot of time in the software industry, but it's how do you sell to your existing customers new products and services? You know, this is particularly important when you go through mergers and acquisitions, because now you have your existing customer base and you make an acquisition. So you have all these new products. How do you get those new products to your existing customers? And also, how do you get your existing products to your new customers? So this better together, I call it, use case is huge out there in product marketing, trying to increase your average selling price, your average deal value. You know, do you want to do $10,000 deals to make 100 grand, or do you want to do $100,000 deal to make 100 grand? You know, what's scalable? And when you do the numbers, those low values, there's so many benefits to increasing your average deal size. It's become a major focus in a lot of organizations. Then the third thing I think I've seen be really impactful is being able to enter into new markets, and that could be new geographies, it could be new industries, it could be new buyers, but basically it's going into a new place where you haven't really gone before. And one of the ways to do that is to have what I call a tip of the spear solution. So what is something that's going to be a discussion starter and where you can solve an immediate need for a customer? And it may be a small need. So it may start off as sort of a smaller deal, but the idea is once you're in the door, you can expand the size of the deal. You know, in this example, those 45 to 115 customers, our average selling price was around 30 grand. By the end, we had customers that were 450,000 annual recurring revenue that came out of these tip of spear deals based on this one use case that was really hot in the market. And it was related to COVID, by the way. So that was a big help for us. So this is, I don't want to spend much more time on this slide, but I think it's important to understand, I would call this sort of the trifecta of product marketing. You know, you've hit your growth, you're cranking on your average deal size and your better together use cases, and you're able to enter new markets. And all of these things I've seen being driven to a large extent by product marketing, obviously not solely by product marketing. It takes an entire team to get these sort of things done. And I'm not trying to say this is all because of product marketing, but product marketing played a big role in this. You know, I remember probably the most effective product marketing I had done for a while was we would meet product marketing, the general manager and the head of global sales on a weekly basis for half an hour and get that cadence going. And we always heard directly from the top of the house and we adjusted on the fly. But that was a really impactful model. So just one of the examples that we'll go through as we get more deeper into our discussion. Anything you want to add here, Neil? I know it's an important.
Well, I think if there's one slide that I would recommend people take, whether you're in product marketing or product management, is this slide that shows the potential impact. Now, this is Mark's and things that Mark and I had worked on and Mark and I have accomplished working together. However, you may want to look at your own businesses and to say, look, if we want product management or product marketing to run around and just create brochures, that's one thing. However, we're missing out on a tremendous opportunity to really accelerate revenue growth. And we can get into a little bit around the how, but this would be the slide I would take. And I would, you know, anytime I'd run into a senior executive, if I was in product marketing, saying, this is what you can accomplish. And by the way, people who are able to think like this and talk like this are the people in product marketing who tend to get promoted fastest. Because you're now elevating your dialogue, you're talking about what the C-suite cares about, and those are the folks who end up on the fast track. So it's critically important that you learn to talk about this. And now this was something that Mark and I achieved, but this doesn't necessarily mean you're going to achieve it. Are you going to grow by 4x your average deal size? But of the number of $1 million plus deals, but to start thinking about the impact that you really can have, or otherwise you don't talk like this, you get relegated to be the lost and found department, which is an incredibly frustrating place to be as a product marketing folk. So let's just move on here.
Great points, Neil.
Thanks. There's a question in the chat, sorry to interrupt. Is product marketing in the intersection between brand management and trade marketing? The question's from Paula.
So Paula, that's great. What do you mean by trade marketing? What is your industry? Because I know that's a term that's quite common in the retail space, not quite as common in the B2B space.
And the response.
Yes, it's more in, sorry. It's more in the retail, and I was asking because I used to work in a company for consumer goods, and I work in trade marketing and as a brand manager. And when you were describing like the different roles or the scope of product marketing, I found like the combination of the two roles, but yes, it's more for retail.
Yeah, and so yeah, it could. In some ways, I like to think of those of you who are in the consumer goods space, who have Procter & Gamble type or General Mills experience. I look at product marketing as the equivalent, the B2B equivalent of being in brand management. So the brand manager owns everything about, you own Gillette shaving cream and you're the brand manager, you own everything about that. Product marketing, especially around the go-to-market strategy, it's, once again, it's a CPG, consumer packaged goods term, that product marketing tends in the B2B world and the SaaS world to be almost the equivalent. Because when I graduated, when I went to business school and graduated, a lot of my colleagues really wanted to get into consumer marketing, and they got jobs as assistant brand managers at places like Kellogg's, General Mills, and Procter & Gamble as a way of getting started. But we can certainly talk more offline. I'll make sure my contact information is available.
Yeah.
Mark, why don't we move on to the tactical, what you've seen?
Yeah. Just one follow-up comment on that. You know, when I started in product marketing and product management, I was the CEO of my business, right? And I'm like, what's that mean? You know, I don't have any fun. I don't have any staff. And all right, so we'll create the illusion I'm the CEO. And then it evolved to, all right, maybe you're not the CEO anymore. Now you're the intersection of a three-legged stool, right? And the three legs would be sales, marketing, and product. So who's kind of bringing all of that perspective together and creating alignment? And that's a good thing, because product marketing done high impact way, you're going to be driving, you're going to have a support team around your product marketers that are going to be able to execute on some of the things that they're putting together. So I like the three-legged stool analogy. That's kind of the last one I've heard. And now there's a lot of different flavors of product marketing, as you'll see as we get into it. So with that, why don't I just talk a little bit about, you know, tactical. What I found is product marketing cuts across business units and across the globe. And it's interesting because it cuts across marketing business units, it cuts across other business units. So when a project or something comes down the pike, and sometimes they're not sure who owns it, where's it fit, because it cuts across countries or cuts across business units, sometimes it gets stuck into the product marketing team because they're cross-functional, and they end up taking it, especially if it's a marketing related task. So I think that is largely due to a lack of clarity around roles and responsibilities. And everyone has different expectations. So if you're not really cautious about setting your boundaries on what's expected of you, it's a real recipe for disaster. So I think clearly defining your roles and responsibilities, trying to be on alert for when you're being asked to take on project management responsibilities, which is, you know, product marketers are fairly well compensated. They're better compensated than project managers. So if you're a product marketer and you find yourself doing a lot of project management work, then you got to start saying, am I really warranted the salary they're paying if all I'm doing is project management? And then the last thing I'll call about is activity-driven metrics. You know, and here's the story. I was talking to Neil about this yesterday. I had a chief marketing officer come in, and he went in front of the sales team and said, I'm going to deliver 35,000 market qualified leads this year. You know, and everybody just kind of didn't take it serious because we hadn't defined what a marketing qualified lead was. You know, and it didn't really mean any. It was a meaningless commit. And that CMO didn't work out, but you know, that's one example. I'm not saying that's just a meaningless metric, but there are more meaningless metrics, like how many, not meaningless, but things that are less valuable, impressions and page views and open rates and things like that. They're important, but they're not in my opinion, they're not the primary metrics that should be driving a product marketing team. So why don't we go on to the next page to kind of give you an example of how this can go awry. Right. So this is that product marketing role that I told you about when I reached out to Neil, right? If you look at what was the job description and the way people were doing this, right? The first thing was assets, creation of assets. And look at the way, I mean, this is verbatim, right? Output measure on volume of assets, and the quality is based on feedback from sales, right? So that was interesting. Then the second biggest bucket was around competitive intelligence to the organization. I'm like, okay, that's great. I think that's pretty good value add. And then it was like net promoter score. I'm not sure how product marketing affects that. Now I see some ways, but it's not a good fit for a product marketing to be really heavily involved with. Awareness, and I don't need to go through each one of these, but this really upset me, right, when I saw this, and I made a big effort to make a change. And you can see I'm over here on the right, I'm saying we're being penny wise and pound foolish here, right? So why don't we go to the next screen, Neil, unless you wanted to add something.
Yeah, and this is just to say that the metrics, once again, if you're measured on how many assets you create, you know, I had one client where the director of marketing would talk about, we're going to double the number of tweets that we're sending out because we feel that's important. Nothing about the impact of those tweets, how many conversations sales is getting out of those tweets, but he was really looking at the volume of assets created. So if you want to get put out to pasture, to say be polite, you know, talk about how many pieces of collateral that you create if you're in product marketing. is a good way to limit your career growth. And we can go into this in greater detail, but I think it's more important to talk about what we see as the quarterback approach to being product marketing led. And by the way, this guy is Tom Brady. For those of you who may not know, he played quarterback in the NFL for 20 years, and he recently retired. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the big thing here is, high impact product marketing. When I first thought about it, I'm like, it's strategic, it's not tactical, but that's not the truth. It's both, right? It's strategic and tactical. You can't just walk away from all the tactical stuff. So you have to find that right balance. But I think the way to find that right balance is look at the third bullet here. It's all about pursuing customer value. In product marketing, we own the value prop, right? And in my opinion, we own the positioning, which is a value prop for the company as well. And that's where the brand overlap and all those sort of discussions come into play. I touched earlier on being clear about roles and responsibilities. And part of the reason that becomes so important is because product marketing maybe is relatively new compared to HR and finance and other corporate functions. And now product marketing, when I got into it, it owned enablement. It owned some product success responsibilities. It owned customer success. These things are now their own groups. So I'm going into organizations where product marketing is bifurcated. So you have a sales enablement team, right? Oh, that used to be a product marketing function. You have a product success team. You have these other teams that are muddying the waters, and we even have like offering managers and strategy leads. So you're carving the strategy and some of the value prop out of product marketing and putting them into these specialized positions. So it's still an evolving profession. But that's part of the reason it's so important to define what your roles and responsibilities are, and then align to your corporation's strategic objectives and be able to make linkages to them to show how we are having an impact on what our strategic objectives are. So with that, why don't we go to the next slide to kind of give you an idea of what I mean by that. So if you run a product marketing team, you have your team and you have 100% of their time. How might you want to allocate that, right? How much should be strategic? How much should be tactical, right? In this scenario, I've kind of broken it out as markets being pretty important as 30%, revenue and bookings as 30%, and then execution at 40%. So if you take the first two buckets, the markets and revenue and bookings, I would say those activities are very strategic. I would say this is sort of a 60-40 split. Think about it, market requirements, understanding what the markets want. And I'm not saying you have to own this, as long as you're collaborating with the product team, but I think it's good if you own it. And the same thing with all of these. I picked these things because I found them to be most impactful, and they helped us achieve some of the metrics that I showed you. But you could substitute, win-loss instead of positioning. Or you can find out what are the strategic things that you are comfortable with and your team may be uniquely suited to select and pull in. And as Neil pointed out earlier, that pragmatic marketing framework, it goes left to right. Left is strategic, right is tactical. So you can look at stuff on the left and see how much stuff you're doing over there, and that's win-loss and market definition and that sort of thing. Or you can look down to the lower right where it's like data sheets and things that are more tactical, and kind of figure out where do you want to play in that mix. And then, thinking about the moving on to sort of what the metrics would be on there. So, I talked about the marketing metrics, the activity metrics. Here are the more, in my mind, the more salient ones. First, average selling price. A lot of companies are trying to up that average selling price. They see it as a way to get more revenue with the same sort of amount of resources. Target your win rates. You want to grow your win rates or reduce the sales cycle time from 180 days to 90 days. When you're thinking about these metrics, so you got to be really careful about which ones you pick because they can be in conflict with one another. For example, if you want to increase your average selling price, you want to double your average selling price, well, guess what? Your win rates might drop or your sales cycle might be longer. So, I've worked at organizations where we're trying to pursue two of these things at the same time and they're at odds with one another. So part of being in product marketing, you are objective and you're doing what's in the best interest of the organization because there's a lot of infighting between business units and geographies and different things. So as a product marketer, I've always said, I got to be objective. I got to do what's in the best interest for the company. and that's aligned with our strategic objectives. And that's brought me a lot of credibility with the executive leadership team. Anything to
Thanks,
add here,
Mark.
Neil?
Yep, yep. And so let's get into the do this, don't do this.
Sure. Yeah. The first one's a takeaway from, I keep referring to pragmatic marketing. That's how big of an impact they had on me. And that was years ago I took it. But I remember this 15 years ago, I was taught in Nahito, nothing important happens in the office, right? Now that's extreme, right? We know that's not to be taken literally, right? But the point is, get out of the office, get in front of people, whether it's people here at the PEF, whether it's giving Neil a call, who's helped me over the years, whether it's involved in BPMA or going to pragmatic marketing, get out there and see what's happening. Set the vision, right? What is your vision? What do you see as the high impact deliverables that you would like your team to own? And sell that, and talked about some of the places where you've had examples, and consult with external examples and bring them to the table. And then the final piece is kind of create that alignment, right? So you're bringing this proposal and you're trying to get funding and grow the team and do all these wonderful things, but make sure you're clear that how you're going to impact those strategic business objectives, how your team is going to do something different than perhaps the sales enablement team or perhaps the product success team, and create that alignment through what I mentioned earlier. When you're defining your roles and responsibilities, ideally writing them down, circulating them with the team and saying, this is what our team's responsibilities are. Now, this is what you should do, but there's some things you got to watch out for too, right? First thing is, you really, it's critical to be persuasive in your pitch. So as you're promoting yourself and your team and your organization, point to examples that give concrete success. Second, be careful when people are looking to put things into your team or have your team take on responsibilities that don't align with what you're trying to accomplish. Everybody has to take on things that maybe fall outside of the scope of what they would want, but don't become a dumping ground for it, And then finally, make sure you invest in your people and your skills, and that might mean bringing in people from the outside. I've seen different models for product marketing. I've seen product marketing models where you hire former practitioners and they come in and they're product marketers because they are in effect the in-house customer, voice of customer, because they were former practitioners. And then I've seen other models where they're pure product marketers and put them in. And I think the best I've seen is a mix of the two. It's good to have some deep subject matter expertise on your team, but you also need someone who really understands product marketing. So think about how you're putting your team together and where you might want to bring in some skills. And then, training, there's a lot of training. We've talked about pragmatic a few times, but there's other groups and there's private sessions and things like that with people like Neil, and then your network of people to work with as well. So you avoid these things, I think you're going to be setting yourself up for success. And if you pursue the things on the prior screen, I think you'll be in a good position to move the maturity needle on your product marketing organization within your team. So just to kind of, Neil, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark. Thank you for that. That was great. Once again, I could spend hours talking to Mark about impacting product marketing. Once again, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. My contact information is right here. I'll also be sharing Mark's cell phone information as well later. But feel free, any questions you have, reach out to me here, either by text, by email, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. If we had more time, there's a whole section on one of the most important things that product marketing owns, which is market segmentation, customer selection, and persona development. And most companies take a very traditional approach to segmentation and persona development, and it ends up doing a lot more harm than good. It gives you a level of confidence that you really don't have the way you currently take a traditional approach. So my colleagues and I have developed an innovative approach to segmentation. And we look at, and we, once again, simple analogies to explain complex topics. Suppose that you sell fire extinguishers door to door. and you come upon two houses and you take a traditional approach to persona development, and you look at one side, the family lives in a brown house. The other house is a white house with black shutters. You know, in one case, the boy is older than the girl. In the other case, the girl is older than the boy. Parents are about the same age, but in one family, the father prefers light blue shirts versus preferring dark blue shirts. And so you can get into size of the house, setback from the property. And if you're walking door to door trying to sell fire extinguishers, who do you sell to first? You really don't know. You know, you can't prioritize, although you may have spent oodles of time and bundles of money trying to ascertain which house to sell to. And we're only going to change one thing, and on one thing only. And in one house, there is smoke coming out of the window. Now, which family is more likely to buy a fire extinguisher quickly? It's the one on the right, the one in the white house with the black shutters. They have an urgent need. However, you can also look at their next door neighbors. They've just seen their house burned down, the neighbor's house burned down. Maybe they've been spooked. Maybe they have had a traumatic event whereby they also now may be candidates for fire extinguishers. Once again, this has absolutely nothing to do with how old the parents are, or how tall the kids are, or the color of the house. But yet that's where a lot of product marketing and marketing folks spend a ton of time on doing that kind of analysis. And you may see cardboard cutouts in the office of what Mary in marketing, or Ollie in operations, or Sam in security think, because you want to get close to the customer. But we often mislead ourselves with our persona work. So we don't have time to get into this in much detail. However, there was a recent Harvard Business Review article by myself and my co-author, where we talked about this whole framework of urgency of needs guiding your sales strategy. Some people have said it's not just your sales strategy, it's your marketing strategy, it's your company strategy. But I was talking yesterday with the senior VP for Philips Lighting, massive job, multi-billion-dollar company. And he is urging his marketing folks, his salespeople, his product folks to read this article. It really outlines in a lot of detail how you can rethink your approach to segmentation and personas. It's available through Harvard Business Review. However, if you want to save a few pennies, or dollars rather, you send me an email, say I'd like the article, and I can get you access to a copy for free since I'm one of the authors. So but we want to get into looking at the needs in 4 different categories. This is what the article starts to touch on, is that there's the urgent need, which is the smoke coming out of your chimney or coming out of your window. And you have a strategic approach of how can we align our organization? This gets into the alignment that Mark talked about, to sell to this urgent need right away. How do we deliver it? The value, what's the value proposition? But then we have a potentially larger category of folks who may have fire hazards. They may have kids playing with matches in the corner. They may have oily rags. And they may not really need it right now because there's no smoke, but you can predict that this is going to happen very quickly and they'll have a need. But once again, your value proposition is different, your customer experience is different. And then you have your need could be already met. Hey, we have a sprinkler system. We don't need this. So strategically, and this is where product marketing leadership takes it, but you tell your salespeople to fight for the business. And you can always say that, well, if there's a sprinkler that goes off, It can do $25,000 worth of water damage. So shouldn't you have fire extinguishers to prevent it from really requiring the sprinklers to go off? And or else maybe just say, oh, you have a sprinkler system, the juice is not worth the squeeze, we'll just move on. Once again, you're providing leadership to the organization. And then finally, you could see someone who lives in a brick house and there's no perceived need. Do you try to convince them that, and you create collateral and materials and case studies and ROI calculators to show them that brick houses can also catch on fire and maybe you do have a need? Or do you tell your salespeople it isn't worth it? Go ahead and walk. Once again, this becomes a tool owned by product marketing, could be owned by product management to really make some very strategic decisions. And then, of course, for each category of need, you want to figure out what's the sales strategy, what's the marketing strategy, what's the value prop. If the house is on fire, the value prop is very different than if you're talking about how you can prevent sprinklers from going off and doing water damage. And so this is really what we start getting into the next gen of segmentation. And so
Neil, there's a question in the chat from
sure.
Dan. Does this build on the idea of personas as developed by Alan Cooper?
So we can get, that's a much detailed conversation, Dan. I'm looking at the clock. We have a few things. I'm happy to take this offline. Reach out, send me an email. We can talk about that because I could run a whole hour discussion on personas. And so once again, I won't do it justice in the 2 minutes, 3 minutes we have left here. But if I did get the opportunity to talk to your team, there's really 4 points I'd make. Is one, Mark has laid out the journey to high impact product management. We've talked about the pragmatic framework with the 37 boxes. I just laid out a category of needs which can be highly impactful towards getting you to be a high impact organization. So we would focus on what's the right priorities to talk about. Where do you get the biggest return of all the things you could be doing? Second, we've coined a term called BOBSAT. That stands for bunch of people sitting around a table. This is how most decisions are made about product marketing, about product market fit. We sit around a table and we have people who have opinions, not fact. We have opinions, not data. And we go out there and we make decisions primarily because it requires a lot of work and a lot of effort to go out there and validate our assumptions. So we take the BOBSAT approach. I would also urge them to rethink their approach to segmentation, move away from traditional segmentation and persona development to urgency of needs. And the net result is we talk about how we can achieve some of the results that Mark has been able to achieve. And the net result would be elevate the perception of product marketing. And the folks would really start to look forward to getting promoted, increasing bonuses, and just having a much greater impact.
Yeah.
So
that being just that one thing there, Neil. This is so spot on. I just want to get this out to the audience because I use this all the time. Urgency of need, and you might be doing it as well. A lot of times I see it as a regulatory driver, right? So there may be a regulation that companies in a geography or an industry has to comply with, and that regulation may be effective in 12 months. So all of a sudden, you've got a whole customer base defined by who's subject to the regulation that you can then target. So just aside, because it's so practical and it's so important to incorporate that into your thinking.
Yeah, and I run half-day sessions on urgency of needs, 2-hour sessions on urgency of needs. So that's a bigger topic, but I would recommend read the article. We'll provide some basic background on that. And be amiss that one of the programs that the BPMA sponsors is the Product Executive Forum. For those of you who are currently VPs of directors, It's a great forum. We get between 15 and 25 of your peers each month to meet to talk about topics of interest. You can use the QR code if you are a VP or director. You can learn more at the BPMA website right there. You can also contact me for any questions. And if you're not a current VP or director of product marketing or product management, then recommend this group to your VP or director, and you'll get a big thank you. I know several folks on this call are quite active in the PEF, and they can tell you also about that. But there is a sense of urgency of need here, because if you are interested in joining us, we're having an in-person social event on August 23rd in Waltham, and that's an evening event. And our next topic for the September 8th PEF, it's at 7:30 in the morning, is AI, artificial intelligence. So just to wrap up here and bring this in by 1 o'clock, love questions, comments. If you would be so kind as to put one or two of your major takeaways from the session in the chat, that'd be awesome. And also, if we set up a call, a 15-minute call, I could provide you a lot of insight on your journey to high impact product marketing. So I want to thank the BPMA team for pulling this together, and my co-presenter, Mark, as well. Thank you so much for your time. You put a lot of time and effort. You do have a day job, and you took time out of your day job to do this, so I really appreciate it here. And I'm wondering if the BPMA team could just stay on for a minute or two after this session ends, because just have one or two things to run by you.
Thank you so much, Neil and Mark. This was really insightful. A lot of things for us to think about. And thank you everyone who joined this call today. We will have the recording posted on the BPMA website, and you can check it out at bostonproducts.org. I've pasted a link in the chat for feedback on this session, so please fill this out. And thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session.
Yes,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.